Howdy Beans, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Howdy Beans podcast. I'm your host, Luke the Howdy Bean. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're all good, as per usual. Today, we're going to be looking at a movie that I've never ever seen. And I know I can hear you all saying, how have you never seen this movie? How have you not seen this movie? This movie is a legendary movie. I know. It's one of Rob Reiner's best movies. And I figured because he recently passed away, and it's a movie that I've wanted to watch for years, and it's because it's a movie that everybody's been telling me for years that I need to watch, I finally figured, you know what? I'm going to do it. So today I'm going to be talking about the cult classic, The Princess Bride from 1987. I am really excited for this one. I really am, because I don't know what to expect. I've seen clips, I've seen Unconceivable, and things like that, but I've never actually watched it. So I have no real sort of connection to it, because it's not really a movie that's shown here in the UK. So I am excited for this one. But before we get into all of that and more, I want to do a bit of housekeeping, because I like to keep my house nice and clean. So if you listen to this on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you listen to this on Spotify, don't forget to leave a follow and leave a 5-star rating. Also, you can find the Howdy Beans podcast on TikTok and Instagram. Just type in the Howdy Beans podcast and you'll find me there for a lot more shorter form, sort of easier to digest content. So I don't really have a lot of memories with this one, to be honest, other than, it's a movie that everybody tells me to watch. And I've seen it a lot recently, especially since Rob Reiner passed away. It's a movie that's been on TikTok a lot. It's one that shows up on TikTok of clips and things like that, and they always make me laugh. I always find them funny, but it's not really a movie that is shown in the UK. I've lived here all my life. I'm 28 years old, right? And I'm a movie buff. I'm always watching TV, or at least I was when I was younger. Always watching Film 4, Channel 4, Sky Movies. All these different sort of channels. And I've watched some weird and wonderful movies through these things. That's how I discovered Studio Ghibli through Film 4. With them just randomly showing Porco Rosso. But Princess Bride, I can't really recall ever seeing it advertised anywhere in the UK, ever seeing it being sort of shown anywhere, talked about, or tonight at 8 a.m, don't miss Princess Bride. It's just not, it's not a thing really. So I think that's why I've never really seen it, because it's not as common here as it is in the States or the rest of that part of the world here in the UK. But I figured, as a movie buff and as somebody who does a podcast, this is the best platform to do it, really. This is the best place to finally kind of get into the nitty gritty and to really get down to a movie like this. And as well, like I said, I've got friends who really want me to talk about it. So if you're listening, this is for you. So let's talk about the movie synopsis. So it goes as follows. So, a fairy tale adventure about a beautiful young woman and her one true love. He must find her after a long separation and save her. They must battle the evils of the mystical kingdom of Florin to be reunited with each other, based on the William Goldman novel, The Princess Bride, which earned its own loyal audience. Again, I've never read the book, to be honest. And I know I don't tend to half-ass things. I know when I tend to look into things, I tend to go the whole hog. Whereas if there's a book based on it, I'll read the book first, that sort of thing. But I won't with this one, mostly because I want to go in with nothing. I want to go in with fresh eyes. And the movie is so critically acclaimed, I want to go in with the movie being my sort of starting block. And if I like the movie, which I'm sure I probably will, then I might look around and check out the book eventually. But I'm going to go straight into it brand new. So that is the synopsis. As for the cast, so we have Cary Elwes. I always struggle with his name. I think it's Cary Elwes. It plays Wesley. Mandy Patinkin as Indigo Montoya. I'm Indigo Montoya. You killed my father. See, I know that one. Robin Wright as the Princess Bride. Chris Sarandon as Prince Humperdinck, great name. Christopher Guest as Count Rugen. Wallace Shawn as Vizini. Andre the Giant as Fezzik. And Fred Savage as the grandson. Peter Falk as the grandfather. Peter Cook as the impressive clergyman. Mel Smith as the albino. Oh, Mel Smith, what a brilliant British comedic actor. He's not talked about enough. He's really, really good, to be honest. Carol Kane as Valerine. Billy Crystal, I love Billy Crystal, as Miracle Max. Anne Dyson as the Queen. Marjorie Mason as the ancient Boer, and Malcolm Story as Yellen. There's a pretty brilliant stat cast here, to be honest. Very 80s cast, but very brilliantly stat cast. Anyway, I'm going to often take a quick break, and then when we come back, I'm going to talk about the development, the casting, and all that jazz. So I'll see you in a second. Right, and I am back. So, the development. Rob Reiner, who had been enamored of Goldman's book ever since he was given it as a gift from his father, realized he wanted to make the film adaptation after successfully demonstrating his filmmaking skill with the release of This Is Spinal Tap in 1984. During the production of Stand By Me, released in 1986, Reiner had spoken to an executive at Paramount Pictures regarding what his next film would be, and suggested the adaptation of The Princess Bride. He was told they could not, leading Reiner to discover that several studios had previously attempted to bring Goldman's book to the big screen without success. Those previous attempts included 20th Century Fox, which paid Goldman $500,000 for the film rights and to do a screenplay in 1973. Richard Lester was signed to direct, and the movie was almost made, but the head of production at Fox was fired and the project was put on hiatus. Goldman successfully bought back the film's rights to the novel. Other directors had also attempted to adapt the book, including, I'm going to struggle with this one, Frankos Truffut, Robert Redford, and Norman Jewison. And at one point, Christopher Reeve was interested in playing Wesley in one planned adaptation. That would have been brilliant. Superman as the main sort of character. That would have been great. Reiner found success by gaining financial support from Norman Lear, whom Reiner knew from All in the Family, and who had funded production of This Is Spinal Tap, with the production to be distributed by 20th Century Fox. Reiner worked closely with Goldman to adapt the book for the screenplay. In a 2011 interview with Entertainment Weekly, Reiner acknowledged that then 20th Century Fox head Barry Diller also had a prominent role in the film's production, instructing him to make the film, which would be like The Wizard of Oz, could instead find greater success over time rather than immediately after its initial release. That's what we got for development. As for casting, so Reiner had quickly decided on Cary Elwes for Wesley based on his performance in Lady Jane. However, during the casting period in Los Angeles, Elwes was in West Germany on the set for I'm really going to struggle with this one. Maskatoon. Anyway, Reiner flew out to West Berlin to meet with Els, confirming his appropriateness for the role. While Reiner and casting director Jane Jenkins auditioned other actors for Wesley, they knew Elswith was perfect for the part. Elswith had read the book in his childhood and associated himself with the character of Wesley, but never believed he would have the opportunity to play him. I'm really going to struggle with that guy's name. I am. I do every time I talk about a movie that he's in. Every time, I always struggle. I always say it differently. And so far, nobody's called me up on it, but I beat myself up about it. So if I'm pronouncing his name wrong, I generally really do apologize. It's a dyslexia. I can't help it. Anyway, Robin Wright was cast late in the process, about a week before filming. Uma Thurman, Meg Ryan, Sean Young, Suzy Amis, Courtney Cox, Alexandra Paul, and Whoopi Goldberg all auditioned for the role. Wright's agent had heard of the casting call and encouraged Wright to audition. Though initially shy, Wright impressed Jenkins and later Reiner. They invited Wright to come meet Goldman at his house. Jenkins recalls the doorbell rang, Rob went to the door, and literally, as he opened the door, Wright was standing there in this little white summer dress with long blonde hair, and she just had a halo from the sun. She was backlit by God. And Bill Goldman looked across the room at her and he said, "Well, that's what I wrote." And it was the most perfect thing. Mandy Patinkin and Wallace Shawn were early choices for the cast. Shawn in particular was chosen as Vizzini due to his diminutive size to contrast that of the giant Fezzik. And Danny DeVito was considered for the role of Vizzini, which would have been brilliant as well. And when Goldman originally shopped his novel in the early 1970s, his first choice for Fezzik was Andre the Giant, whose wrestling schedule left him unavailable for filming. Goldman's second choice was Arnold Schwarzenegger, who at the time was almost unknown as an actor. By the time The Princess Bride was finally greenlit, Schwarzenegger was a major film star and the studio could not afford him. Jenkins contacted the World Wrestling Federation to ask about hiring Andre, but was told that the filming conflicted with a wrestling match in Tokyo that would pay him $5 million. Jenkins auditioned other tall men, including Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Lou Ferrigno, Lou Ferrigno, sorry, who played the Hulk. Carly Steichen, I can't pronounce that name, sorry. But these did not pan out. Andre was hesitant to take the part on the account of the fact that the film's dialogue was in English while he was French, and because he was a professional wrestler, not an actor. Furthermore, Andre was suffering much pain resulting from his acromegaly, which was to eventually lead to his early death. Liam Neeson also auditioned for the role, but he was turned down due to her height. Near the end of casting, the World Wrestling Federation told Jenkins that Andre's match in Tokyo had been cancelled, clearing him to play the role of Fezzik. For his part, Andre found his participation was a gratifying experience, considering that no one stared at him on set during production as a kind of freak, but instead simply treated him as a fellow member of the cast. Oh, well, that's lovely. The film was shot in various locations in England and Ireland in late 1986. Carl Walk in Sheffield, Burnham Beaches in Buckinghamshire. Oh, God, I'm from here and I can't pronounce some of these. Laughkill Dale, where it meets Calesdale, the Battle of Wits scene. Cave Dale, Castion, Derbyshire, England. Bradley Rocks and Robin Hood Stride, Birchover, Derbyshire. Cliffs of Mona, County Clare, Ireland. Haddon Hall, Bakewell, Derbyshire, England. And Penhurst Place, Kent in England. The frame and story scenes, the last to be filmed, were shot at the Stephenson Studios in Surrey. Rayner rented a house in England near these sites and frequently invited the cast over for meals and light-hearted get-togethers. Many cast members believed this helped to create a sense of family that helped to improve their performance for the film. Els and Patkin learned to fence both left and right-handed for the film, and they performed their combat scenes to get themselves, with the exception of 2 somersaults performed by stunt doubles. They were trained by fencing instructor Bob Anderson and stunt coordinator Peter Diamond, both of whom had also worked on training the actors in the original Star Wars trilogy. Els and Patkin spent about 3 weeks prior to filming learning to fence, and they spent most of their off-camera free time practicing. Anderson encouraged the two to learn the other's choreography for the fight to help them anticipate their movements and avoid an accident. They also watched many sword fights from previous films to see how they could improve on those. Andre the Giant had undergone major back surgery prior to the filming, and despite his great size and strength, could not support the weight of Els during their fight scene or right for a scene at the end of the film. For the wrestling scene, when Els hangs on Andre's back, he was actually walking on a series of ramps below the camera during close-ups. For the wide shots, a stunt double took the place of Andre. When he was apparently carrying Wright, she was actually suspended by cables. Billy Crystal and Carol Kane spent time before travelling to England to work out the backstory between Miracle Max and his wife and develop a rapport for their characters. Once on set, Rayner allowed them to improvise some of their lines. And that's all I have really for the production of this movie. Reading that and going through it has actually got me really excited for what it's to come, really, for what to expect. And like I said, I've got nothing to expect. All I know is, Rob Reiner made it. He is a master director and like filmmaker. He was a massive talent as well. Like if you ever watched him in, like when he had cameos in movies, and one of my favorite cameos that he ever had was in Wolf of Wall Street when he plays the accountant. I'm not going to say the lines because I want to keep this PG, but when he comes out, he talks about the sides and stuff. It's the best scene in the movie, in my opinion. Anyway, how good he is and like how much of a cult classic this movie is, like it's really got me excited just to check it out. I'm sure I'm going to like it. I'm sure I'm going to enjoy it because every time people talk about it, anybody tells me or wherever I see it on TikTok, it's always one of them is like, I will stop and I will just watch the scenes. So I'm going to go in fresh. I'm going to go in empty like I've seen nothing, but I have no doubt that I'm really going to enjoy this one. So I'm going to go off and watch Princess Bride. If you have access to it where you live, go off and watch it. And then when we come back, I'm going to talk about first impressions, the story, little things here and there about production, and then my overall thoughts, and then maybe find some trivia, which I'm sure there's tons of trivia on this movie. And then we'll end things quite nicely. So I'll see you all in a second. Inigo Montoya, you killed my father. Prepare to die. Oh, I love this movie. I do. I absolutely love and adore it, to be honest. Like, it would be inconceivable to think that I wouldn't enjoy this film. And that's no joke. I really, really enjoyed it. And I know I would do, to be honest. I went into this with only really what people have told me. Everybody told me it was great. It was a classic. Now, usually when you go into a movie or a game or a book or whatever, and everybody tells you how good it is, there's usually the chance that you're going to go into it with that idea, give it a watch, give it a read, give it a play, whatever. And then you come out of it going, oh, it's not that good. Now I've got to go to that friend or family or whatever and tell them how much you didn't like it. And you kind of have to lie and be like, oh, no, it wasn't bad, that sort of thing. But with this one, generally, like, everybody was right. And I get it. I watch it and I'm like, no, I understand why this movie is a classic. I just can't believe it's taken me this long to finally watch it. And as I said in the introduction, it is a movie that's not really shown here, to be honest, which is a crying shame because it is brilliant. I think there is a huge, even though this movie came out in 1987, I feel like there's a huge audience who haven't seen this, of the British public, who should see it because it feels very British. It feels very fanciful. It's a brilliant fantasy medieval story. It's funny, it's witty, it's charming, it's silly. It feels like Mel Brooks. It feels like, and it kind of, that's funny, is like the main guy in this, Cary Elwes, he plays Robin Hood in Men in Tights, which is by Mel Brooks. It feels like Mel Brooks, but at the same stage, it feels like its own thing. When you have Feswick or any of the other characters, like Inigo, it's funny. It's like when Wesley is climbing the what's it called, the big rock wall, and he's Inigo up. I was going to say upstairs, but he's at the top. He's practicing. He goes, you going to take any longer? And he goes, well, if you don't mind, this is incredibly hard. Just give me a chance. I'll get there. He goes, okay. So he just practice, and he goes, are you sure they need no help? And then Wesley's like, well, if you could throw down a rope, that would be helpful, to be honest. But, I don't know if I can trust you. And then, like, Inigo is like, well, would you trust the word of a Spaniard? And Wesley's like, well, I'm not sure. And then Inigo goes, I give you the word of my father. And he drops it down, and they sit and have a chat. And it's it feels very different. It's one of those where you spend to fight, where it's like, no, they sit and have a chat, and Inigo says, have you got 6 fingers on your left hand? He goes, no, I've only got like 5. And he tells him, like, oh, it's a shame, I've been hunting these past 20 years to find the man that murdered my father. And I still haven't found him yet, but I've been trying for years to be a master as a swordsman, and that. But sadly, like, revenge doesn't really pay the bills. And Wes like, no, I completely understand. I get it. He's like, I'm just working for Vizzini because he pays the bills. But I'm still on the hunt for that man that killed my father. And like Wes like, no, I completely understand. I get it. It's all you gotta do. You gotta do what you gotta do to live and work and all that. It's like very gentlemanly. And they have the sword fight, and it's so good. And it's one of those where it's like you just watch it and you're like, this is a fantasy, but at the same stage it feels very grounded, but at the same stage it doesn't. I can't really quantify into words. It feels Mel Brooks, but it also feels serious, but at the same stage it's charming and wonderful. And I don't know what Rob Reiner was able to do here was perfect, was terrific, to be honest. And I was a bit confused, I'll be honest, going into it, because you have the beginning of the movie where it starts off with the princess, which is like Buttercup, and she is just like a peasant girl, and she has a peasant boy who kind of helps on her farm, and she goes, farm boy, I want you to clean my saddle on my horse. I want to be sparkling. I want to see my face in it. And the peasant boy looks at her. He says nothing but as you wish. And she goes, farm boy, I need you to clean out the stables. And he looks at her and he goes, as you wish. And slowly but surely she learns that as you wish really means I love you. And they fall in love, and it's wonderful. And he goes, I must go to seek my fortune. I must travel. And as he travels, she finds out that he dies, and she goes off and she goes, I'll never marry again. But then the prince finds her and takes her as her own, and chooses to marry and makes her a princess and eventually makes her the queen. And I love that. That's absolutely wonderful. A great setting up to find out who Wesley is as a person, to understand who Buttercup is. It's really, really lovely. And then it just goes off. And then you got Inigo Montoya comes into it, and it's brilliant. And you've got Fezzik, and you've got Vicini. And like, these are the characters that I always see. So you got Wallace Shawn, who plays Vicini. Inconceivable. All of that. Like, I've always seen that on TikTok. That's the part that I know. Again, Ignacio Montoya. My name is Ignacio Montoya. You killed my father, prepare to die. Like those scenes, again, with Andre the Giant and Fezzik, you always see them together. So I'm thinking, going into this, they're going to be the main big badge. They're going to be the people throughout this story who Wesley is going to fight and to be against to get the princess back. That was my interpretation. Little did I know, he dispatches of them all within the first 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes of the movie, maybe 30. And I was like, he beats Ignacio at a duel, but he lets him live, knocks him out. And he's like, look, I really, really admire you as a swordsman. Like Ignacio's like, oh, make it quick, kill me quick. And Wesley's like, no, I'd do better of destroying like a tapestry. Basically, like, I'd be better off destroying art. I really respect you. Like, it would be a waste to kill you. So he just knocks him out. Fezzik, he takes him out very, very quickly. The giant, he does him with like not physical brawn, but he kind of like whittles him down. And then Vicini, Vicini's like really smart, really clever, and outsmarts him. And I'm like, okay, so 30 minutes, the main old characters that I know of are all gone. Where's this going? And I was a little bit concerned of, oh God, is it one of those where it's played all its cards at the beginning and all the best parts at the beginning? And is that why you only see the beginning of the movie? Is it going to be the rest of it going to be a bit of a slog? So I was a bit worried there, but it doesn't. It's still witty, it's still charming, it still goes on, and it's still funny. Like, they go into these, I think I can't remember the name, but they go into like these woods that's really, really dangerous, and they get attacked by these giant rodents. And Wes is like, Buttercup's like, but what about the giant rodents? He's like, honestly, I don't think they exist. And all of a sudden, one just jumps out and attacks him. So it does feel slapstick. It feels silly, but it works. It doesn't feel overly campy. It doesn't feel overly like, trying for laughs. It's just funny. They're not overly playing for laughs. It's just generally, it is a funny scene or whatever. And as they're going through then you meet the prince, and you find out that he's a bit of a douche, that he's not really sort of great, he's not very honorable sort of thing, and his right-hand man. Find out that his right-hand man actually has a left hand with 6 fingers. That is the guy that Ignacio is trying to find. And it's one of those where I'm like, oh, okay, so my favorite characters are kind of gone, but I'm here with the story, follow it along. And then, much to my surprise, how Ignacio comes back, and then Fezzik comes back, and I'm like, oh, my favourite characters. Because my favourite character, I'll be honest, like, I love Wesley, I like Buttercup, I like Fezzik, and even Vicini, even though he's only in it for like a little bit. But admittedly, I like Ignacio. I know I'm saying his name wrong. I can hear it in my voice. It's a dyslexia. Every time I'm saying it differently. But I like Montoya. He is my favourite because every time he appears, he's just funny, charming, great, brilliant. Like, every time he's on screen, I'm just smiling. So I'm glad that when he came back, and they tried to save Wesley, and then Billy Crystal appears as Miracle Max, and like, it's Billy Crystal, even though he's got loads of prosthetics on. You just know it's Billy. Billy just has a way. His voice is just so iconic, but he's great in it as well. And it's one of those where it's like, oh God, I was worried, but then it keeps going. But then it's funny, like Mel Smith as the albino, brilliant. He's only in it for a little bit, but he's great. It feels like Young Frankenstein. It feels like very much like Men in Tights. It feels like Mel Brooks, and to know it's not, and to know it's by Rob Reiner, and that what he was able to do here, and that even though it feels like this, but it's still its own thing. It's a wonder why this movie is not shown as much over here. It's a wonder as to why it's not a movie that I've seen sooner, and that's why I say it's like inconceivable to think that I wouldn't enjoy it, because it's right up my alley, and I'm just surprised it's taken me this long, because it is generally really, really good. I found myself just smiling at it, to be honest. I liked all the characters. I'll even love the bit, with the grandfather and the grandson, where it basically starts with them two, where the grandson is not feeling very well, so his grandpa comes to visit him, and he goes, hey son, like I hear you're not doing very well, so I'm going to read you a story that my grandfather read to me when I wasn't very well, and I read to your father when he wasn't very well, and I'm going to read to you. And the son, again, he's a young kid in the 80s. He wants to watch TV, play video games, that sort of thing. And his grandfather is like, well, no, I'm going to read you this story. And the grandson's like, was it a kissy book? And he's like, no, just watch it. And I love as it goes through, you have the voiceover of the grandfather, like reading the story as it goes along. And I love that. And it switches every now and then, kind of like Never Ending Story, where you get the fantasy part and then it switches back to real life, the young boy reading the story as like, I love that. And you don't get enough of it because it reminds me of those movies when you used to get like Stand By Me, which I believe Rob Reiner also did. As well as, Sandlot, where you have those movies where you have the voiceover, because you don't really get them much anymore. Like, I remember growing up, you had a lot of those movies that had the voiceover, or you had those moments of like, I remember back when I was young, and we lived and we had fun and it was great. And then all of a sudden it goes from like an old man to the young kid, and then it tells the young kid story. Like, I miss that sort of storytelling, which we don't get enough of. So it was lovely to see again. And you had those moments, like I said, where, something happens in the story and the young boy's like, oh my God, no, grandfather, please tell me it's not true that so-and-so happened. And the grandfather's like, do you want me to keep reading this story or not? Like, maybe, like, you're getting too invested, you're overthinking it. Maybe I should stop. And the little boy's like, no, please, keep reading. He reads them the story. And at the very end, when like he closes the book and it says the end, the little boy is like, grandfather, like, would it be all right if you would come back tomorrow and read me the story? And the grandfather just looks at him, smiles, and goes, as you wish. And that's lovely. And then it ends, and I'm like, it's one of those where, like, it makes me wish that I had a girlfriend. It makes me wish that I had somebody in my life like that who could ask me to do something, and I could just look at her, not say nothing but smile and go, as you wish. You know what I mean? It's just one of those where, like, I wish I had somebody I could do that with. I really, really do, because it's just so lovely. And it's great, but also it's a little thing of like, if you get the reference, it's even better, and if you don't get the reference, it's still charming. You know what I mean? It's still lovely. Yeah. So I you can't see my face, but you can probably tell from the way I sound. I'm grinning from ear to ear. It is a very lovely movie, and I would happily watch it again. I really would. And I'm watching it today on a sunny day, and it just feels right, But again, it could feel like a movie I could watch when I'm ill, or it could be a movie that I watch when it's raining. Like, it's one of them films that no matter what the weather is, you can put it on and you can get the enjoyment out of it. It works for any weather, any day, no matter how you're feeling, no matter what. It's just one of them sort of films that just works, And I love the production design as well. I loved how it looked. Like again, they shot in the UK. They shot, in the countryside and in the castles and all that, which, to be honest, the UK is full of castles and history and a lot of medieval buildings, and we have greenery galore. Like, we have, like, if you ever go to like Shropshire or Malvern, the hills are just gorgeous. There's a show in the UK, which if you're in America, you won't know it, called Heartbeat. It's all set in the countryside, but if you ever go to the Shropshire Hills, it's just rolling countrysides. It looks absolutely just mesmerizingly beautiful. It looks like the hills from Heartbeat, which is a deep cut for anybody who's from the UK. But yeah, there are loads of lovely greenery parts, and it feels like it. You generally feel like, yeah, I'm in medieval times. I am in England or an English sort of type place like that. And I love it. I just instantly just fell in love. Like, the costumes, the art, the direction, the way the characters spoke, the way they acted, just brilliant, And coming to my overall thoughts now, I know this has kind of been a bit of a short review. I think the introduction was probably longer than this review. But I just can't believe it's taken me this long to watch it. But I'm glad that I have, because it's lovely. It really is. And even though, it's kind of like, there are parts when you get certain characters that just come and go into the story. Kind of like I said, with Billy Crystal, with Miracle Max. He comes in, but when even though he's not there for the whole part, he feels right. It doesn't feel like a skit. It doesn't feel like, oh, we're just putting Billy Crystal in for comedy's sake, which they probably did, but it doesn't feel like that. It generally feels like Billy Crystal's character, Miracle Max, belongs in that world. And even though he has a sort of accent from, I think, Brooklyn accent, which I think is where Billy Crystal's from, but even though it has Billy Crystal's voice and it doesn't match anybody else, everybody else has a British sort of accent apart from Inigo, who's, again, a Spaniard. It still fits. It still works. Like, yeah, I believe that somebody like Billy Crystal, Miracle Max, belongs in this world. Again, Mel Smith, the albino, I believe, even though he's only there for a little bit, I believe he belongs in this world. So all the acting is done. Every sort of side character that comes in and out, like Warwick Shawn as Vicini, even though they have a small bit, the inconceivable and using big words and say he's really, really smart and he's trying to outthink Wesley and that sort of thing, even though all of that, it's still one of those where you're like, yes, I love this world. I'm invested. I'm enthralled. Like I want more. I want to, even though I know there isn't more, I want more. And I did my research while the movie ended before I did this. And like this movie is like an abridged version of the book. And it's kind of funny. Whenever I looked at it, everything that came up was like, oh, the movie is an abridged version of a very much longer, boring book. I don't know if that's a tagline of the film or what people are saying, but it's just funny how it came up multiple times with people like, yeah, the movie is a better version of the book because the book is just a longer, boring version. So, if you want to experience the story, just watch the film. Which is funny, but also it's not something you see normally. Normally, it's like, oh, the movie's all right, but the book's bad. Where a lot of people just online goes, no. If you want to get The Princess Bride, if you really want to experience the story, you watch the movie, read the book if you want to. So I'm kind of glad I didn't read the book, and I probably won't. But rest assured, I love the movie. And for me, I think that's more than enough. So yeah, I would recommend it. If you haven't seen this movie, if you're like me and it's not a movie that you've watched, give it a go. Generally, I feel like you will get a lot out of it. I don't think you'll find it boring. I don't think you will sort of not like it, even if you're not really a big fan of fantasy. I think the characters, the dialogue, those things, I think you'll get enjoyment out of those. So even if you don't enjoy the setting, what comes with the charmingness of it, the silliness of it, the campiness of it, the dialogue and that sort of thing, I think you'd get enjoyment out of that, and the cast as well. To be honest, like Robin Wright, I think I prefer her here in this movie as Buttercup as the Princess Bride than I do in Forrest Gump. And I really liked her character in Forrest Gump, even though Jenny, let's be honest, she is probably one of the worst characters in all of literature and all of movie roles. That's the character, not the actress. I think the actress did a brilliant job. And I really liked her in that. And to be honest, that was whenever I used to think of her as an actress, I always used to think of her in that movie. Whereas now I've seen this movie, all I can see is her as Buttercup, as the princess, and asking the farm boy, to do something. And he looks at her and goes, as you wish. You know what I mean? So that's all I can see. So that's really changed my perspective of her as an actress. Like, this is how I see her now as Buttercup. So it has had a bit of an effect on me. So yeah, definitely recommend it. Go out, give it a go, give it a watch. You will find a lot of enjoyment out of it. And again, one little side note, I really liked how we had Peter Falk as the grandfather who played Columbo. As grown up being a fan of Columbo and watching that with my granddad, it was lovely to see Peter Falk as the grandfather in this, and it was just lovely. It just reminded me of my grandfather, so it was really, really nice. Anyway, before we wrap things up, I want to do a little bit of trivia. So, when asked to name his favourite thing about making this film, Andre the Giant replied, "Without skipping a beat, nobody looks at me. He felt he was treated as an equal without people staring at him because of his size." Manny Patinkin has said that the role of Ignacio Montoya is his personal favourite over the course of his entire career. During the filming of some scenes, the weather became remarkably cold for Robin Wright. Andre the Giant helped her by placing one of his hands over her head. His hands were so large that one would entirely cover the top of her head, keeping her warm. Yeah, you get that in the UK, to be honest. And not to kind of date this episode, but so far this year, we have had more rain and cloud than anything, and that's just typical British weather, to be honest, even though we still moan about it. So, I would imagine Robin, who I believe is American, coming from the States where you have a lot more nicer climate, shall we say, and coming here and filming in the UK where it is mostly grey and cloudy. Even in the summer, you can't guarantee you're going to get summer, to be honest. It would still be warm, but it's going to rain. So it makes sense. But I just like how she had Andre the Giant in his big hand, because, again, he had like he had mitts, you know what I mean, big hands, cover her whole head. That's kind of cute. When Count Rugen hits Wesley over the head, Carly Ellsworth told Christopher Guest to actually hit him. Guest hit Els hard enough to knock him unconscious and lacerate the top of his head. Production was shut down for the day when Ellsworth went to the hospital. Talk about method acting. Robin Wright and Carly Ellsworth were smitten with each other during filming, naturally helping their chemistry in the movie. Ellsworth said that he couldn't concentrate on much of anything after that first encounter with Robin, which again, I completely get it because she was just gorgeous. She is a gorgeous actress anyway, but she was completely gorgeous as Buttercup, so I get it. Anybody would be smitten by her. Director Rob Reiner left the set during Billy Crystal's scenes because he would laugh so hard that he would feel nauseated, which, again, I get it. Those scenes I was laughing the most because, again, anytime Billy Crystal appears in anything, he's always funny. Even when he's trying not to be funny, he's great. Like, I always remember that scene from Friends when him and Robin Williams just appear, and that whole scene that they appear is just ad-libbed. None of it was rehearsed. They were literally came on and they just improvised, and it is one of the funniest scenes in all of Friends, in my opinion. So yeah, whenever Billy Crystal comes in, it's great. Mandy Patinkin claims that the only injury he sustained during the entire filming of this movie was a bruised rib due to stifling his laughter in scenes with Billy Crystal. His attempt at holding back his laughter is obvious from his facial expressions during his line, "This is noble, sire." And that is it, really, for trivia about this movie. I could go on and on because there is loads of trivia, but I don't want to be here all day. But yeah, I absolutely loved and adored this film, and I think you all will too. So I highly recommend it. Give it a go. Give it a watch if you've never seen it, because I feel like you will be greatly surprised. It is truly wonderful and magical. And I hope to do more movies like this, movies that I haven't seen. And if you like this and you want to see more, well, just let me know and I will let you know as you wish. But yeah, so thank you very much for listening. If you've seen this movie and you like it, or if you don't like it, or if you found it boring or anything like that, let me know in the comments down below what your thoughts are on The Princess Bride. You can do that on Spotify now. You can also do that on YouTube. While you're there, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Again, if you're listening on Spotify, don't forget to leave a 5-star review on Spotify and to follow the podcast on there. And yeah, if you want to follow me elsewhere, you can also follow me on Instagram and TikTok. Just type in the Howdy Beans podcast and you can find me there. So I've been your host, Luke the Outer Bean. It has been an absolute honor and pleasure. It's a complete inconceivable chance that I didn't enjoy this movie, but I did, and I'm sure you will too. And I'll catch you all in the next one. Bye-bye.